Good evening and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My wonderful co-host, Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour over 3 years ago to give everybody a way to connect and enjoy stories together on a Wednesday. So we've been here pretty much every Wednesday ever since. We are very happy that in 2023, we are here with the help of an SFWA Givers Grant, which helps us keep everything streaming. Thank you, SIFWA. We love you. Welcome back to those of you returning, and welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. As always, we have two writers reading for their favorite nonprofits and from their own work. Tonight's readers are Lora Gray and Biv Zelkovich. If you can, please consider donating to tonight's featured nonprofits, the Trevor Project and the Salt River Wild Horse Management Group. Lora Gray is reading for the Trevor Project. LGBTQ young people are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide, and suicide remains the second leading cause of death among all young people in the US. That's some pretty ugly numbers. Through crisis services, peer support, research, public education, and advocacy, the Trevor Project aims to end suicide among lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning young people. It envisions a world where all LGBTQ young people see a bright future for themselves. You can learn more at thetrevorproject.org. Biv Zelkovich is reading for Salt River Wild Horse Management Group. Enjoyed by millions of visitors to the Tonto National Forest, the Salt River wild horses roam freely in their 20,000-acre habitat along the lower Salt River, protected by an Arizona state law passed in 2016 for their protection. The Salt River Wild Horse Management Group performs its work under contract with the state with excellence, integrity, and humanity for all of the horses in the herd. Their management includes many different aspects, from administering humane birth control to rescuing injured wild horses when needed. With its large volunteer force, SRWHMG monitors the horses daily, helping them cross roads when necessary, which is probably not as much fun as it sounds, but still. And it's available for emergencies 24/7. You can learn more at saltriverwildhorsemanagementgroup.org. So if you're here on Zoom, feel free to leave your camera on. It is really nice to see your faces. And chime in on the text chat here on the right if you like. If you're joining us on Facebook, we are very happy to have you, but we may not be paying you very close attention. Just pretend you're at the big kids table or something. But we will check in. We will. So our first reader tonight is Biv Zelkovich. Biv Zelkovich writes speculative fiction, anything from dragon hunting and space whales, but never dragons hunting space whales, to demon dealing and ghost tales. She likes to explore human emotions in very inhuman situations. When she isn't escaping through her imagination, she escapes into the wonders of the Pacific Northwest with her spouse and their 4-legged son, Simon. Brittany, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure.
So I'm just going to get started then.
Yes, please.
I'm going to read three shorter pieces today. I write a lot of flash fiction. And I'm going to go ahead and start with a piece that published in Corvid Queen back in the lost summer of 2020. It's called The Cost of Rain. And some content notes is we do discuss some child death and some brief mentions of blood and gore. This desert gets wider and wider each year, Winnie, the old woman said to her dying horse. The mare staggered across the sand, her rider trudging beside her and grumbling the whole way. Next season, we'll have to bring the mule just to carry the canteens. In fact, the woman realized she ought to have brought the mule and the canteens this season, but she couldn't admit that to old Winnie. The mare's head bobbed, and the woman pretended that the horse simply agreed with her instead of succumbing to the brutal heat. They crested a dune, the coarse and brittle shrubbery cracking under hoof and heel until the gnarled woman cried out in delight. "See, Winnie," she said, "we're almost there." The woman was perhaps a tad optimistic. The oasis flickered on the horizon, and only the woman's familiarity with the path convinced her the water wasn't a mirage. She'd made this trip too many times to fall for the desert's tricks, but it would still be a long hike under an unrelenting sun before they found any relief beneath the lone tree that stood beside the pond. "We'll get you some shade and water, Winnie," the old woman muttered. "A little peace before he gets his claws in you." If the horse suspected any duplicity on the part of the haggard woman, she kept it to herself. Their journey continued in relative silence, punctuated by the mare's heavy breaths. Once velvety nostrils, now cracked and bleeding, flared with desperate inhalations, as if the air itself would be enough to keep her hooves under her. But the woman didn't notice her mount's vain attempts to prolong her life, just as she didn't notice the vultures that spun lazy circles far above them. "Cursed drought," she grumbled. "Hasn't he taken enough? Haven't I paid enough?" She wiped the sweat from her brow with one wrinkled hand and ignored the way it shook, just as she ignored the aching thirst in her throat. The mare stumbled. The reins jerked from the woman's weak grasp as the horse fell, first to her knees and then onto her side. The animal's groan rumbled from her chest and echoed out across the expanse of sand, like some miserable ship scraping its hull across a reef. "Blast it, Win!" The woman stooped to snatch the reins from the dirt and marched to stand before the horse. "We're almost there." The horse didn't seem to care. Winnie lay on the hot desert sand, her sides heaving, and struggled for air. But there was no rest to be had. The woman jerked mercilessly on the reins, clacking the bit against the back of her horse's teeth. "Curse you, Winnie!" the woman shouted. "Get up!" She pulled against the reins as if she could drag the horse along behind her. "Get up, you lump! We're almost there!" This time, the old woman was much more realistic. The oasis was closer, and at that moment a breeze kicked up, cool and clean from the pond. It whispered across the woman's forehead, playing with her bangs to leave relief in its wake. It breathed a smidgen of life back into the woman and horse both. The mare scented the water and her nostrils flared, then she heaved back to her feet. "That's it, Win," the woman said. "Just a little farther and this nightmare will be over." For the horse, that might be true, but the woman knew the most dangerous part of their journey lay in wait for her at the oasis. The mare hurried in the direction of the water, favoring her right foreleg where the sand had scraped it bloody. The woman jogged after the animal, releasing the reins only once she found the springy softness of grass beneath her boots. The horse neighed, loud and shrill, as she trotted to the pond. Without hesitation, the mare dipped her muzzle to the water and drank, but the woman ventured no closer to the water, no matter her own dire thirst. Instead, she walked to the lone tree, a scraggly thing that offered only a little shade and a place to rest her back. She watched the mare, her last horse, and waited. It wouldn't be long now. Quenched, the horse moved off to crop at the thin grass that bordered the oasis, her copper-colored coat gleaming and damp in the sun. Another breeze picked up from across the pond and grew until it was a wind, a gust, kicking up sand that forced the woman to cover her face to keep the particles from her eyes and nose. Not long now at all. "Regina," the man spoke. His voice was pleasant, soft and warm. It set her at ease just as she remembered. And when she looked up at him, it was plain the years did not affect him. He was just as youthful as the first time she laid eyes on him, before the sun and years had etched themselves into her skin. His angular, pale face was hairless save for two delicate, dark brows that matched the wild mane of black hair on his head. He had kind brown eyes that reminded her of all the colts she'd raised over the years, wide and wondering. She would consider him plain of features save for those eyes, completely forgettable if you avoided them, and completely bewitching if you didn't. "Demon," she snarled in reply as he sat beside her against the tree. "Demon?" He blinked at her. "Are we not friends, Regina?" She glanced at him but refused to meet his gaze. He wore the same suit that he always did, neat and pressed without a single smudge of dirt to be found. It made her self-conscious despite herself. Her jeans were worn from years of hard riding, her boots scuffed from countless wayward hooves. She flung her wiry gray braid off one shoulder. "I don't think we were ever friends." The man frowned at her. "Then why have you come?" She nodded at Winnie where she grazed. "That's my last mare." He considered the horse. The trip was hard on her. He looked back at the old woman. Hard on you both. The woman spat. This life has been hard on us. But I helped, didn't I? His voice was so soft, so innocent, so dangerous. She nodded. I figure you did. Is that why you're here, Regina? You've gotten me out of some tight spots before, she said. He reached out to her as if to take her hand, but she flinched away from him. He dropped his hand to his lap and looked away from her. What would you ask of me? End this infernal drought. He watched her, his eyes wide and dark, and the woman had to remind herself not to look into them. I know you can do it, she said. That one season you made the harvest twice as bountiful, and the season before that you ensured that every one of Hillard's cows bore a healthy calf. He nodded. And the season before that you bore a son. The woman froze, staring at the man in the suit while he watched her last mare tear up coarse desert grass. Your husband proclaimed it a miracle, he continued. The doctor had just pronounced you barren the winter before. He turned those dark eyes on her, and she almost forgot to look away. Did you ever tell him the true cost of his legacy? She stared down at the dried clay between her boots as her memory played the scene over for her. Star, the big black stallion she'd hand-raised, had always been gentle and even-tempered. But the morning after her visit to the desert, the stud put his hoof through her brother-in-law's face. She and Elmer screamed and sobbed over Edmund's corpse. The only relief was knowing he died instantly. She cleared her throat, but refused to look at the quiet, gentle-mannered creature that sat beside her under the guise of a man. Her silence was answer enough for them both. He sighed. Rain clouds are not so miraculous as suns, he said as he stood, but the price is steep all the same. The woman nodded at the mare. That's why I brought her. He shook his head. This trip killed her, I'm afraid. After so much exertion, you let her drink her fill. He sounded genuinely sad as he spoke of the mare's fate. She'll cramp and colic before sundown. By morning, she'll be nothing more than vulture food. Does that really matter? He spun on her, a brow arched. What hope is there when one faces the inevitable? I don't have anything else to offer. The man frowned at her, his brow crinkling, and her heart trembled in her chest. Your son's wife is with child, he suggested. No. With such a life, fresh and untainted, I could guarantee a generation of bountiful harvests and calves aplenty. He glanced back at the mare. And a strong stud colt to rebuild your line. The woman wavered, her indecision inviting the man to continue his pitch. Your ranch will prosper, your family will flourish. He reached for her once more, and this time the woman did not flinch from him. But I cannot help you if you do not consent. As ever, the choice is yours, Regina. She closed her eyes and turned her face up to the sun. She breathed deeply through her nose and out her mouth, tasting the cool scent of water on the hot desert breeze. Then she turned tired gray eyes to find soft, kind colt's eyes staring back at her. She did not look away. All right. So that's The Cost of Rain. Thank you. My next piece also features child death and blood and gore, but it's wholesome, I promise. It is from my newsletter. I send out a microfiction every month, and it is called His Favorite Time of Year. I'm actually going to take a drink of water first. Pardon me. All right. His favorite time of year. This is the boy's favorite time of year, the only time he really feels alive. In the dark of night, he wanders neighborhood streets, for once blending in with the other children. They're all dressed in costumes. Some he understands and others he doesn't. There's always a vampire or three, a mummy here and there. But his favorites are the simple white sheets with holes for eyes. He thinks they're funny. He follows the crowds, reveling in the gasps from adults and the nervous laughter of the children when they see him. He likes scaring them. There's a power in it, a power he doesn't often have occasion to feel. But even better than power, there's that feeling of acceptance, belonging. And each year there's at least one kid brave enough to approach him with awe in their eyes. This year it's a girl, maybe 9 or 10. She's wearing a fine tulle dress and ballet slippers, but there are streaks of bright blood on her camisole and smeared all over her mouth. I like your costume, she says, hissing on the S's. The molded fangs on her eye teeth make some words slur. It's really creepy. Thanks, the boy says. I like your blood stains. Never mind that they're far too bright. Real blood dries a rusty color, not this technicolor crimson. She beams at him. I did it myself. Once her pride's washed away, she glances around the sidewalk. Where's your mom and dad? He shrugs. At home. It's a much easier answer than the truth. Her brow crinkles. You're alone? Yep. She takes his hand and, instead of pulling away at the frigid skin, holds on tighter. You can come with us. He doesn't argue, doesn't fight. This is the best part of Halloween. What's your name? She asks as they rush to catch up with her family. Justin. He's pretty sure that's right. I'm Bella, she says. He snorts. Bella Ballerina? She scowls at him. Bella Lugosi Ballerina. Obviously. He laughs, the sound wheezing and wrong. Dry. But she smiles and hurries to introduce him to her parents. They blink at him, startled by the very realistic makeup blood coating the axe wedged in his skull. It's all oozy and shining in the jack-o'-lantern light. He doesn't feel proud about it. Wow, Justin, her dad says. That's very realistic. Who did it for you? My uncle, he says. He remembers that much at least. It must show in his raspy voice because the adults stop questioning him and they take off down the street. They knock on doors and scream trick or treat and laugh at all the exaggerated gasps and oohs and ahs. They collect candy, Bella in her little pumpkin bucket, Justin in his rusty stained linen pillowcase, and by all accounts the night is a huge success. But the moon gets too high, the hour grows too late, and eventually all the kids have to go home, even Bella. Do you live around here? She asks as they meander back toward her family's house. He shrugs. Not too far. He's always around these parts. It's just Halloween when he can finally come out and play. Thanks for letting me trick-or-treat with you. She frowns, about to ask another question. He takes her bucket and dumps his candy into it, pouring fancy chocolate bars he's never tasted until her pumpkin overflows. What are you doing? I have to go, he says. But don't you want your candy? He's already walking away when he shouts back, I can't eat it anyway. He waits until he's under a streetlight to let go of his old form and fade away to mist. But he's just boy enough still to hear Bella's shocked gasp and her ballet slippers slap on concrete. Halloween always was his favorite time of year. All right. So then my last piece is just came out in December. Thank you, everyone. In Lolcraft, a compendium of Eldritch humor. So we're going to end on a much funnier note. I think the only content warnings here is some adult language, nothing too egregious, I hope. And go ahead and get started. This one is called Biv Derailed. Mass transit has rituals. Some are universal, rushing for the doors when they open, refusing to make eye contact with that guy talking loudly to no one. Others are personal. Mine's a playlist that accompanies my 3 a.m. ride each night, played loud enough to deaden the metal clunk of the train. Nothing like 90s R&B to soothe the mind after a busy night pouring drinks and dodging drunks. Down the car is an old guy who I think stuffs paper for delivery. There's a smudginess to him, like his edges wear away with every block. Each night, it's me, the curmudgeon, and the guy screaming at ghosts. Because in a city this size, you only ever feel alone. The brakes squeal and the train slows. My bucket seat vibrates, rattling my spine. The doors open and the guy with the sixth sense exits. I wait a beat, expecting the ratty loafers, saggy tights, and woolen dress that always shuffles on at the stop. But the doors close and the train groans back up to speed. I can't remember a time Granny didn't get on the train. That's not her name, it's just what I call her after a year riding the subway together. Every night, she shambles on at 2nd Avenue, settles into the seat across from me, and smiles before closing her eyes and muttering to herself. I figure she's praying, but I never take my headphones off to listen in. I shrug it off. Maybe she took the night off for once. But the longer that empty seat stares back at me, the more my stomach churns. We have rituals for a reason, for comfort. That if we do everything just right, things will go our way for once. My playlist is one ritual. Granny and her prayers are another. Riding the subway without her feels like getting halfway to work and realizing I left the oven on. I look over at the curmudgeon to find him watching me. He still looks like a single drop of rain would wash him away. All his sharpness lives in his eyes. They're dark as the tunnel swallowing the space behind the train. His mouth moves, but Belle Biv DeVoe harmonizes over him. I slip a headphone off one ear to ask, "What?" when the lights flicker. Normally, that wouldn't be strange. The subway's a dinosaur calcifying beneath the city. Lights flicker all the time. But tonight, it's all kinds of wrong. In the unreliable light, I notice the glow from outside the train. What the? The tunnel's a wan green, the color of a pool left to rot. A color that tells your nose what to smell. That putrid psychosomatic stink hits my anxious gut like bad sushi. I gag hard enough to spit bile on the floor. The curmudgeon's beside me by the time I wipe my mouth on my sleeve. "You see it too?" His voice is rounded by the Bronx, and he goes from smudged grump to gramps in my mind. I nod. The glow gets brighter with each clack of the wheels. Before I can say anything, the train screeches and bucks, throwing me and Gramps from our seats. My headphones skitter away, but I'm too busy keeping the old man from busting a hip to care. I'm all right. For all his smudginess, he feels solid under my hands, so I release him once he's upright. It isn't until we each have a hold of a stanchion that we realize the train isn't moving. I'm used to fickle transit. Late starts, stop-and-go trains, some calamity on the rails, but a full stop at 3 in the morning? Meanwhile, that sickly light keeps getting brighter. The lights flicker again, then give up. By the glow of the tunnel, we exchange aggrieved looks. Isn't it punishment enough to be commuting at this ungodly hour? I look out a grimy window. We're at a fork in the tunnel, and in the extra space, there's some twisted take on a landscape painting sprawled across the rails. Grass carpets the floor of the tunnel, deep green blades splotched with rot. Trees grow up the walls, branches dripping rancid gunk. Birds hop between the trees, their wings stuck out at painful angles, feathers puffed and askew, like they've smashed into skyscraper windows. I say usefully. "Gramps? What is it?" He doesn't leave his spot in the aisle. I search for an answer that makes sense. There must be some reasonable explanation for all of this. The tentacled moose takes care of that assumption. I'm no moose expert, but I know they don't live in subway tunnels. Or, have writhing green tentacles for antlers. So helpful. A moose? A what? I'm not sure if he's shouting or if that's just his voice, but I decide some shouting might be in order. A moose! I heard you, it just didn't make any damn sense. Fair enough. I wave him toward the window. We watch the whack-ass moose stride through the tunnel. It's big. I know moose are big, but are they grazing the subway tunnel ceiling big? And I'm fairly certain they don't generate a pulsing, eerie green light. That's, glad I'm not the only one rendered useless by what's happening. That's a moose. Yeah, a fucked up moose. He laughs, but it's more shock than anything. We can't look away from it. It's too big and too bright. The antler tentacles undulate like snake tongues, tasting the air in unsettling throbs. The closer it comes, the less it looks like a moose at all. What looked like fur from a distance is actually moss, all glistening and spongy. What do we do? How the hell should I know? You think I got a lot of experience with botanical mooses? I'm about to correct his grammar when the thing stops and swings its massive head toward us. We freeze, my hand a vice on Gramps' coat sleeve. It doesn't have eyes. Instead, there's a crimson rose in each socket. It's pretty in a Guillermo del Toro kind of way. Less pretty is the tentacle winding out to investigate the train. We gotta do something. Maybe we should sing? I tear my gaze from the moose monster. What? The babushka, she always sang. I thought she was praying. She was singing. He gives me a look that says, kids these days. What did she sing? I don't know, something Russian. The tentacle touches the train, lighting up the steel in neon green. I don't know Russian. My voice ripples through the car, the light shuddering with the reverb. The moose bellows and all of its writhing antlers rush toward us. The train car rocks and gravity goes sideways. We fall back into the seats, my head cracking against the window. My headphones careen down the aisle and hook around the center pole, music blaring. The moose has the train in its tentacles, dangling us above the tracks, but pauses as a new song plays. We exchange a look. It's crazy, but what else can we do? I sing along with the song playing over my headphones, and while I think Poison is a classic, there's no guarantee this Cthulhu concurs. My voice stumbles when Gramps joins me on the chorus, all brass and bronx, arms waving to the beat like some depraved conductor. We keep singing, Gramps coming in when he knows the words. I sway in my seat and he snaps his fingers, his face so red I think he might have a coronary. But arm by arm, the tentacles release us. The car crashes back to the tracks and that awful green light fades away down the tunnel. For a second, we sit in the dark, breathing hard. The emergency lights click on and alarms ring out down the train. Gramps reaches his hand out to me. Name's Harold. Kai. We shake hands. Nice to meet you, Kai. Emergency services take 30 minutes to reach us. By then, Gramps is a normal color and I have some bar napkins pressed to the back of my head. I try not to look at the smear of blood on the window, but I know I'll need stitches. The official story is that a mechanical failure caused the derailment. Only our car and the drivers were far enough into the fork to see what happened, and the driver didn't survive the collision with the moose monster. Gramps and I aren't dumb enough to tell anyone what we saw. Now we always sit together. We talk about our days, mine ending and his beginning, and once we pass the 2nd Avenue station, we sing. We never see Granny again, so we know it's up to us. Another mass transit ritual. Thank you.
Oh, that was adorable. Hilarious. You're right. That was the right one to end with. Nothing like a good belly laugh to just. Thank you. Now I'm ready for another story. We have Lora Gray for that. 2 more stories, actually, right? We're having a little flash fiction festival tonight. Lora Gray is a non-binary speculative fiction writer and poet from Northeast Ohio. They have been published in FNSF, Uncanny, Flash Fiction Online, and Asimov's, among other places. Lora is also a graduate of Clarion West and a recipient of the Ohio Arts Council's Individual Excellence Award in Fiction Writing. You can find Lora online at Lora, that's Lora -Gray, and on Twitter at Laura J. Gray. Lora, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be back. Great to see everyone.
We're excited too. Thanks for coming back.
Absolutely. So I have a couple of stories here. The first is We Don't Hold Hands Anymore. And that's from my Patreon. So it was originally published there. We don't hold hands anymore. Your palms are blistered from too many mornings spent feeding the sphere, and my touch, you tell me, stings. Still, every morning when your shift as fuel hand is ending, I come to the silver mines. I climb the narrow, winding path to stand beside the other wives and wait for the whistle, the rattle of machines slowing beneath the earth. I clutch the black cloak you gave me when we first came here, the one you pressed so tenderly around my shoulders, because I was from the warmer lowlands where tar pits and quarries take the place of jagged peaks and mines. I watch them hoist your basket from the sphere's deep shaft, an eternity of slow turning winches and groaning ropes. When they finally pull you above ground, your hands are still smoking. A supervisor booms a greeting and smiles as they lift you up and out. You fed the sphere, after all, that miraculous engine, that magic that makes the kingdom's mining machines quicker, safer, and more efficient. You're a fine man, he says, for your sacrifice. None of them seem to care that every day you look a little thinner or that your palms are seared a permanent, angry red. They pretend not to notice the way you linger while the other workers eagerly greet their wives. But I've seen the way your breath hitches as the next shift begins and another fuel hand takes your place in that basket. Evening light pouring golden over his hunched shoulders as they lower him into the shaft, where the sphere rumbles, already starving for human touch. You'd stay down there forever if you could. It's beautiful, you once whispered as we lay in bed, the hearth flickering, a frigid wind howling outside. You'd just been promoted to fuel hand, and I remember shivering at the new roughness of your blistered palms as you stroked my hair. It feels like a sun rising inside me, you said dreamily, your thumb tracing circles over my cheek. And then when the sphere feeds, it just flows out. Sometimes I think I can almost taste it in my fingers. Haven't you ever wondered what the sun tastes like? I laughed and shook my head. I wouldn't want to burn my tongue. You laughed too, but the sound was strained. And when you kissed me, your mouth tasted like ash and longing, like deep earth and fires I could never really understand. I can't stop looking at your hands. I want to cradle them, kiss them, heal them, press them against my body to see if you can still feel anything but the greedy pull of that sphere. Soon, I'm afraid, you won't have hands at all. I know about the former fuel hands. Their skin so burnt that it begins to rot, their fingers porous with infection, bones softening to jelly. I see them sometimes, wandering up from the shanty towns at the base of the mountain, whispers of men, their arms hanging limply at their sides, their hands long since withered away and amputated, their wrists ending in blunt stumps, their eyes haunted and hollow as they look toward the mines and a sphere that no longer needs them. They are always alone. I have a recurring dream. You are standing beside me in the sphere chamber. Its shine fills the space like a full moon in miniature. Veins of silver glint on dank walls. The shaft quivers and flexes around us as if threatening to close like a fist. Your hands are black as tar as you caress the sphere's curving sides, and flames crawl over your fingers, blue-white and blinding. I can smell the gamey burn of you as the sphere moans. Does it hurt? I ask, shielding my eyes. You look at me, smile, and open your mouth, but the dream ends before you can answer. I have a waking nightmare. They take you from me in the night, and in a dark room, they tie you down. With a flash of steel, a wet snap of bone, they lop your hands away. And then your confusion, your rage as you realize what they've taken from you, what they forced you to abandon. Your arms will become weapons then, clubs, abbreviated and dangerous. Perhaps you will cap them with leather. Perhaps you will cap them with steel. One swing will dislodge another fuel hand's teeth. One solid jab will crack a woman's delicate jaw. When I was a child, I once saw a crow trapped in the tar pit beside our village quarry. Its voice broke like a man's scream as it struggled against the mire, clutching its legs. Other crows circled it first, frantically calling to it, mincing in anxious clusters on the rocks above. One by one, they winged down to light on its shoulders as if they could somehow pull it free. Days later, I found that crow abandoned, a motionless blister in the tar. For weeks, I visited it, willing it to stir. For weeks, I watched it sink until finally only a single wing remained visible, thrust upward, feathers spiking toward the morning sky, like a hand waiting to be held. And thank you. Thank you all very much. Taking a cue from B and hitting up the water. So my next story I'm going to read is Goodbye, Julia, which was originally published by Distant Shore Publishing a couple years back. Goodbye, Julia. I am 50 miles outside Gary, Indiana, and sifting through the remains of a farmhouse when I find the cookbook. It's not the first book I've seen since emerging from the bomb shelter 2 months ago. I've found them peppering the lawns of demolished libraries and sprinkled over dead folks' living rooms. I even pocketed a few for company at first, reading them aloud just to hear the sound of a human voice again. But lately, I've been burning them for heat. They're easy kindling, and autumn is starting to curdle into winter. But when I pick my way through this house's kitchen, climbing onto the counter to look for canned soup or peaches, anything to soothe the terrible ache in my belly, my knee thumps against a cabinet door and it swings wide on a broken hinge. The cookbook tumbles out. The cover is so tattered that it takes me a moment to realize it's the cookbook, the first one I ever saw or read, the one about mastering the art of French cooking that my grandmother kept in her kitchen. I'd recognize it anywhere, the photo of Julia on the cover, her hair poofed and flipped, her wholesome smile. I remember as a child imitating the way she stood, and my mother laughing as she smooshed my hair into a bouffant. I remember as a teenager trying to decipher those recipes, the strange French words my grandmother and Pappy were so proud. Breath melting over my lower lip, I run my fingers over the ragged spine, wonder, grief, and longing rolling over each other so quickly my knees buckle and I sit on the kitchen floor. Cookbook cradled in my hands, Indiana October pouring through the punctured ceiling like gravy as I gingerly open it. I don't even realize I'm crying over a recipe for beef bourguignon until I taste salt creeping into my blistered mouth. And then, you know you'll need a good red wine for that recipe. I snap the cookbook closed, pulse heaving into my throat, my free hand dropping to my hatchet as I jump to my feet. There she is, Julia, black and white and two-dimensional, standing beside me as if she's wandered off the back of a dust jacket and into this stranger's kitchen. Her colorless eyes crinkle mischievously. "Well, there's no wine here," she says. "What a pity. You could make gravlax instead. Salmon cured with salt and dill. Delightful. It's even more scrumptious than cooked fish. Julia quivers as if she's been shaken from a jello mold, wobbling dangerously toward the book once more before firming her jaw and shimmying into solidity again. I don't have any fish, I finally manage. I can't tell if the sharp bulb in my throat is panic or fear, hunger or hope. No fish? Nonsense. There's an icebox right there. But come now. We'll need dillweed and salt, of course, to toughen it, and sugar to soften the skin. Julia turns, her body paper thin as she rotates and totters across the kitchen like a paper doll. I know she can't be real. I haven't seen a living soul in weeks. Besides, real people don't peel themselves out of cookbooks. Real people aren't literally flatter than pancakes. Still, it's been so long since I've talked to anyone. It's been so very long since I've been anything but alone. So I follow Julia to the refrigerator and stand beside her. She doesn't smell like the cookbook, like scorched paper or ink or the bitter tang of fallout. She smells like pastry dough and fresh onions, clarified butter and lavender, chicken stock simmering on cold afternoons. She smells like my grandmother. Julia gestures expectantly toward the refrigerator, the door long since blown into the dining room, and I peer inside. It's all but empty, just a handful of moldy, barely identifiable lumps of what might have once been food. A center cut is best, Julia says, leaning in beside me. But any piece of salmon will do. There's nothing edible in there, I say. Look again. I shake my head, feeling ridiculous, but sure enough, there is a cut of salmon, neatly wrapped in wax paper, as if waiting for me to uncover it on the top shelf. I lift it carefully from the refrigerator and unwrap it, finding it pink, cool, and fresh as West Coast rivers and mountain streams. On the other shelves are sprigs of dill, a perfectly measured bowl of sugar, and a shaker of salt. Now, Julia says, planting her papery hands on her hips, let's begin. The part of me that obsessed over that cookbook as a 16-year-old wonders why we're making a Norwegian recipe and not meuniere or a souffle, but Julia is guiding me through it all like an old friend, and I can't bring myself to ask. I feel the cadence of her voice in my bones, like an internal dialogue I'd forgotten I had, a memory pulled from so low in my belly it hurts. It hurts a lot, actually. Pain gnawing up and into my chest, and I curl my hands over my abdomen with a wince. There, dear, Julia says, folding her hands over mine as if she could ease it all away. I look down and see, with a jolt, that they are my grandmother's hands, the ones that helped me knead pastry dough. My mother's hands, chopping celery and baby carrots. My pappy's hands on a snowy Midwestern Saturday, teaching me how to make Cincinnati chili. I take a deep breath. The pain dissolves, and together we pry the bones from the salmon. We rub in the sugar, the salt, the dill, massaging skin side, flesh side, making sure nothing is forgotten, and I feel For the first time in forever, something like peace softened the disjointed terror of loneliness. When I finally step back from the counter, Julia is beaming. The only way one learns how to cook things, she says, gesturing broadly, is to cook them. And you certainly cook that. I laugh, feeling airy and light, even as I begin to cough. I didn't really cook it, though. The pain in my belly shoves itself against my lungs. The salt cures the salmon, remember? You said so yourself. Julia's expression grows thoughtful and distant, her eyes focused on the cookbook resting on the counter, as if suddenly recalling the space she once occupied. No, dear. I suppose you didn't really cook anything, did you? But you should know as well as anyone, one must make do with what one has. I follow Julia's gaze to the cookbook, uneasiness wafting over me like steam from an uncovered pot. And there she is, on the back cover again, her face stamped onto the dust jacket as if she'd never left, inanimate, her expression frozen, gaze fixed on a sometime I can't return to. She is no longer beside me. I lift the book, turn it over and over, straining to see movement in the dimming light. I shake it, smack it as if trying to dislodge a stubborn lid from a jar of preserves. Julia doesn't move. I beat the book against the countertop. Nothing happens. I tug at the pages. Nothing. I scream, I cry, I throw the cookbook onto the floor in a flurry of half-torn paper and broken binding before finally collapsing beside it, burying my face in its pages to recover her familiar scent. But I find only scorched paper and ink. When I finally gather the courage to look at my salmon, I see only the remains of a molded fish carcass on the countertop, chewed to bone by cockroaches and fortunate mice. The dill is a jumble of dead weeds. The sugar and salt, nothing but piles of plaster. Outside, the wind is howling. It slices through the kitchen, biting my exposed skin with frigid, unrelenting teeth. The sun has begun to set. I know what I have to do. Clutching the cookbook, I try to ignore the ache pinching my belly to my ribs. I build a fire pit from toppled bricks and the flank of a metal radiator. As darkness falls, I sit beside the pit and imagine Julia's hand, soft and encouraging, atop mine as we tear page after page from her cookbook and lay them in the center as kindling. It's my grandmother's hand, my mother's, my pappy's, that pulls the precious match from my pocket and strikes it against a jagged brick. Beside me, they cheer, praising my technique as I drop it. I can feel their arms around me, familiar, loving, and warm as the first page of that cookbook ignites. Smiling, I close my eyes and imagine the smell of burning paper into crepe Suzettes, baked Alaska, a perfectly executed Cherries Jubilee. And
Wow.
thank
Daniel, tonight we've really seen the full potential of the flash fiction form. A few minutes ago, I was laughing so hard. And now, oh, Laura, your writing is so evocative.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for letting me share it here. I love Story Hour.
And we love you too. Please come again. Now, your Patreon, you publish stories there on a schedule?
I do. I publish, depending on the tier of the patrons, it's once a month, either a new story or poem that they get. So
And
it's
do
super
people
fun.
who join now get to go back and catch up on what came before?
On most of them, some of them have been lost to a technical glitch,
No,
but most of them are on there, depending on the tier that you're on. Yes.
including the one you read earlier.
That one might be a glitch one, but hey, if you were on Story Hour and you join, let me know and I'll send it to you.
Oh, that's a nice offer. Thank you. Beautiful stuff. We really are the luckiest people, Daniel.
We certainly are.
Oh, every week we're here, and every week it's different. Next Wednesday, our readers are Danya Coles and Samuel Marzioli. So that will probably be a spooky one. I do recommend checking storyhour2020.com so you can check the schedule, see who's coming up soon next. If there are any changes, we'll announce those there. And if there's anything that you've missed, then, oh, Samuel Marzioli had one in Lovecraft too? I didn't know that. Okay, I've got to move that one up the TBR pile now. I bought it initially because Shannon K. Garrity has a story in it. And I know that story and I love Shannon's stuff. So, wow, we know there are at least 3 really great ones in there. So yeah, Samuel Marzioli next week with Danya Coles. And if you realize that you've missed some story hours and you're feeling that gaping void in your life, you can always go to the Story Hour page on Facebook and just scroll through the videos till you see which ones you want to watch. You can watch this one over and over and over and experience that huge roller coaster of flash fiction emotions again. So, Biv Zelkovich, Lora Gray, thank you so much for reading for us tonight.
Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having us.
Please.
Yeah,
come
thank you so
again.
much.
It was wonderful. And thank you to my co-host, Daniel Marcus, without whom literally none of us would be here in this Zoom. And thank you, all of you who are here tonight in the Zoom, here tonight on Facebook, stopping in on Facebook sometime in the future. Because, you know, as long as you're watching and enjoying these stories with us, we're all here in the same story hour. Good night.